I have a tendency to overwork myself because I want to prove that I'm worthy of people's love and attention.
Yes.
So that's definitely a trap that I'm struggling with. So I always need to watch my motivation. It's just like, do I want to prove something here, or do I just want to love?
Hi, and welcome to this edition of Mid-South Viewpoint. I'm Byron Tyler. It's always a pleasure to get together with you and to visit our guests and to hear their story and see what God is up to in their life and ministry. And the last time we got together, I was thankful to welcome Gabor Grace into the studio to talk about the ministry that he and his wife Etna have with Campus Crusade for Christ, which is actually called Cru. And that's actually the official title of the ministry, because I'm an old guy. I sometimes get stuck with the Campus Crusade for Christ, a ministry that Bill Bright and his wonderful wife Vonette were with for so many years. Who hasn't seen the Four Spiritual Laws, the little booklet that has led many people to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ and has been used around the world? Gabor, how many languages do you know has it been translated?
It's over, a lot. I don't know. But what I know is the Jesus Film is translated, which is also one of Cru's ministry, over 1,800 languages.
My.
I mean, the Wycliffe and Cru, Campus Crusade, is working together on that to get to every language.
Well, last time we got together, we kind of unfolded your family history, a very cruel and brutal history in a time when the Nazis were invading Europe. You were born in Hungary. You lived in a communist state yourself after the Nazi regime crumbled. Then came the Soviet Empire, and you lived, or in many cases tried to live for your life in a communist rule state. We don't even have an idea. In today's generation, there's a push. We're almost living today in a socialist, pre-communist state here in our country, in America.
Right. Well, I mean, this is what I feel that, my first 25 years I lived under communism. The second 25 I've lived in post-communism. And I kind of see signs that I live in pre-communism now. Since 4.5 years ago we moved to the U.S. It's kind of like there are a couple of signs that are very concerning. Now I know that every country is different, and the U.S. is different than, we don't have the Soviet Empire, empire to come here and take over the U.S. But there are internal processes that are happening that's alarming.
At best, we are in a crucial time for the Church of Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. To
remain faithful to its mandate.
Absolutely.
To make disciples of all nations.
Right. If I sometimes I feel that the U.S. Church got a little bit unguarded about what's going on in the culture right now. We're surprised by it, and 200 million of this nation, 200 million Americans are unchurched right now. 160 million says they don't believe in God, or they don't believe in the Bible, and that number is growing 4% every year. 4,000 churches closes every single year. So there is a trajectory that's very alarming, and all this has happened while we were doing Bible studies, while we were sending missionaries to the world, while we were building our churches, and how did this happen? While in other parts of the world we're much less resourced, like in Indonesia, millions are coming to the Lord.
Yes. Gabor, we left the show last time we got together, I think on a high note. It was how you came to faith in Jesus Christ, and the beginning of you being discipled with a missionary couple who were living in your country under different occupation, but who discipled you, and you got excited about sharing your faith. You even were arrested at one time, which was a whole new experience for you, but the joy was still there. The joy wasn't taken from your life. So what had taken place in your life, the living word that came in, Jesus Christ who became your Lord and Savior, you knew there was something different. This wasn't just a religion, because you had been raised in a state to believe there is no God.
Right. And and on top of that, all the, what we talked about, the abusiveness of my father and all the ordeal that happened there. It was such to me, experiencing God as a father through the invitation of Jesus Christ into the family of God's family, it literally to me became a family, because there was no other family.
Yes.
Okay, my mother's second marriage was falling apart, and that was also brutal. And the only hope, but I just ran to God like a little child for everything. For health, to be able to speak, because I stuttered, for provision, everything, and the only thing you had that one day, and you trusted the Lord, and the next day, and you trusted the Lord. So that's God became very, very real, so real that after for 9 years I have not seen my father after I ran away, because it was life-threatening for me. But after 9 years, I thought I need to go back and forgive him, and my mom was very upset with me that I want to go back. Even today, she tells me, although now she's a believer, I said, I don't know how you were able to go back to your father and forgive him. Yes. My father passed away 11 years ago, and I wanted to go back because I did not want to live in prison.
Yes.
Okay, I was in prison by this unforgiveness and this bitterness that I had and fear. So I had to go back and forgive him, and I kept the relationship, although he always cussed me out. He always and when he died, he excluded me from his last will, which is so sad, because not because of me, but because he did not respect his own mother to pass something his own grandchildren, even just a little memory.
In the process of that, a little ray of sunshine that began to sneak into your life. You met Edna.
Yes. Well, we met in the underground movement of Campus Crusade in the 80s, and I fell in love with her because she was so enthusiastic about evangelism, and it just like, okay, I love to share my faith. I want to live my life with someone who also loves to share her faith.
Yeah.
And she's coming from a great Christian background.
Now, was she willing to live in a tent like you and your buddy were? We talked about last time.
She was too young at that time. Okay, so I was 18. She would have been 15 at that time, or 19 and 16. So I don't think her parents would have appreciated that.
When did the spark begin? Immediately? Was it a process? Or?
It was a process. It was a process. As I recognized her heart for the Lord and for the lost. That it's, okay. This is a woman that I want to, and we went through an incredible journey, and she proved to be who I thought she was.
She had her own backstory too,
right,
from living in a communist state. As
right,
we mentioned, her grandfather
right,
was a Baptist minister.
He was interrogated. He was kicked out from the ministry. He had to work as a unskilled worker.
Yes.
Okay. But he was just a very meek person, in a humble and meek person who just trusted in the Lord. Yeah. And he said, "Well, we're gonna trust in the one who judges justly."
There was a couple that came to Hungary in the late 80s, Dave and Karen Robinson, who you were very dear friends with.
Right, and still.
Yeah, you work together now.
Right.
That brought you some hope, too. So tell me about their arrival and how that impacted your excitement for the ministry.
Right. Well, actually, Dave is 10 years older than I am.
Kind of like a big brother then.
Right. He became a big brother to me. Dave is a very passionate, visionary leader, and really talented. Always inspired faith. After we came on staff of first year, okay, I felt devastated. We wanted to leave staff. I thought, this is crazy that we're doing this. But he said, no, don't leave. He always inspired faith. When there was a new leadership challenge for me, I had to take over the leadership in Hungary in 2004, and the ministry was in a very, very difficult spot. Everybody told me, don't do it. But he said, no, have faith and do it. So he always inspired me to do the impossible with the nothing I have. Okay.
We need people like that to stretch us, right?
Right. So, I've learned a lot of leadership skills from him, and a lot of faith. We worked together, after 35 years. We know each other for 36 years, actually. And we still work together and actually love each other.
Well, having those relationships is so important in our life, that we have mentors, people that we can, cry on their shoulders, pray together.
And one more thing about that is that the number one thing why people leave the mission field is the other missionary.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for two people from different cultures, growing up completely differently, working together in great unity and kind of helping each other's work.
Yeah.
I think this should be a model for the body of Christ. It's possible.
I think so. I think that's a great word, because having personally experienced life on the mission field with my family, and those who have never gone and served in that capacity before, and maybe those in church might view somebody as a missionary, as a holier than thou, or
Right.
We're people.
Absolutely.
With the same struggles,
Absolutely.
the same burdens, the same heartache and things we have to deal with,
Right.
in life. We're just following what we believe God's called us to do,
Right.
in a work in a field or another location. It can be a very lonely place.
Oh
to
yeah.
be. Yes.
It is lonely. I mean, I don't have to doubt. That's why, one of the factor, beside of all the missional elements that pulled us here, and why we said yes to this challenge that we have received from Cru leadership to co-lead church movements with Dave, was not only the reality of the U.S., but I said it's more important who I work with than what I'm doing. It just because I saw too many times that people gave up what they were doing because the team was the wrong team.
Yes.
So at least 60% of the mission is who are you doing this with.
Yes.
If you do it alone, you're going to fail.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay. And the right team is absolutely critical.
And having people in leadership in the team is so critical too. Because
Absolutely.
sometimes leaders can get into a position just because they've been there,
Right.
but they don't have the ability to really lead, and they actually become a deterrent
Right.
for ministry to really flow and to work. I've seen it myself.
Right. One of my observation about for so long being in the ministry, and it's not just U.S. wide. It's global. The lack of leadership in the church, or and I hate to say this, but I stand by this statement. The poor leadership in the church is staggering. It's staggering. And it's not just in the church, in ministries, in missions. Just because someone is a holy person and can teach the Word of God, it doesn't mean they are good leaders.
No, it does not. It doesn't.
Takes so much more.
We've got to be more careful on how we appoint people to leadership roles.
Absolutely. And it goes back to something that I think we adopted we went into this, in Ephesians 4, Paul says that God gave 5 gifts to equip the saints for the ministry: apostles, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, teachers. And what happens in the church, we hire the shepherd teachers.
Yes.
Okay. But those who have the apostolic gift, not in a capital A,
Right.
but in a small a, who are the sent ones who are pioneering into new territories, or the evangelist, they don't get hired.
Right.
So what they do, they start their own thing. So the leadership capacity that it's there in the pioneering ministries are never brought into the local church.
That is a good insight there, Gabor. Very good insight. Well, your life story is really a testimony that Jesus is about doing the impossible, as we shared last time. And as he continues to do, because it's the impossible to all of us, because
Right.
is referring back to Ephesians says, you were dead in your trespasses and sin. He came to give us life and give it to us more abundantly because we were dead. We needed his life to revive be revived from the dead. C.S. Lewis was quoted by saying, "It is only our daily bread we are encouraged to ask for. The present is only time in which any duty can be done or any grace received." What have you discovered about God's grace in your life?
Well, gosh, I mean, in so many ways, I could be a testimony on that. That well, one, living in mission for 30 years, day to day, God provides. Impossible legal, financial, staff issues, ministry issues. But let me say something how we experience God in a very personal way through our kids. Our first child, the doctors told us that we have to abort her because she's gonna be handicapped, or they said third of her brain is missing, and there's a hole in the brain. It remained all throughout the pregnancy, and so many people prayed. But we told the doctors we're not going to abort her, so we had to sign a paper. And I have the paper that we signed that we decline aborting the baby. Okay, now that baby is now a medical student.
Yes, she's the young lady that's in Scotland now that you mentioned on our last show, that wants to become a doctor.
Right, and strong believer.
There's the impossible story of Jesus.
Right.
Another story.
It's just like, God provides every step of the way.
Yes.
And I could, or I could say, well, where I felt that, inheriting a ministry with hundreds of thousands of dollars debt, okay, 70% of the staff left. There was, the staff morale was just down and no functioning in the ministry. And saying yes because Jesus says, feed my sheep. Okay, with the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, I have nothing. That's what I bring. And the Lord turned around everything. And in 13 years later, we had a surplus in the bank account. We had 5 times as many staff. We have 5 new ministries. There are miracles along the way.
When we talk about grace, Gabor, have you found it difficult giving grace to yourself, especially through the pattern that have been rooted in your experience with your father? And how has that impacted your relationship with your children?
Right. My wife often asks me this question, that, do you love yourself? Because certainly sometimes it looks like that you don't. And, Jesus says that love your neighbor as you love yourself. And, if you don't love yourself, how do you love your neighbor? So, yeah, it's hard. I struggle with that, to give grace to myself. I try to overachieve, try to, overperform, because it can be, I have a tendency to overwork myself because I want to prove that I'm worthy of people's love and attention.
Yes.
So that's definitely a trap that I'm struggling with. So I always need to watch my motivation. It's just like, do I want to prove something here, or do I just want to love? And I'm doing this out of love. It took a while for me to capture that reality. The other that comes with this, what I mentioned in the first show, is that I always tend to ignore my pain so I would please others.
Yes.
Because how my father treated me. And it's just like, no, I don't. I need to pay attention to my pain.
You said it's not the suffering that should not have happened in your life story. It's the healing. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that the suffering is normal. It's just like we kind of learn to accept it and embrace it. I mean, a cancer or a tragic death, or will lose a job, or it just happens. So what's kind of normal in the world is that we're facing toward death. Okay. What's not normal is that actually there's healing on the way.
Yes.
So for me, I was on the path to death because the doctors told my mom by age of 18 or 20 I'm gonna be dead, and the teacher told my mom, don't even send him to high school. Okay, he's just kind of stupid. He's stuttering. He kind of. So the healing that surprised me. Well, actually, I don't stutter. Well, actually, I learned English. I actually able to communicate. I actually able to lead my life. Actually, I'm able to lead others. I'm able to teach. I'm able to give something.
Yes.
That's what's not normal from the background that I'm coming from.
Such a beautiful, beautiful picture of the canvas, really, of art that God does when He
Right.
creates and makes something beautiful. You know, He makes all things beautiful
Right.
in His time. Our time of Him doing it is not His time,
Right.
because oftentimes His time is through the pressure cooker, through
Oh,
the
yeah.
crock pot of
Yes.
life,
Yes.
waiting and going through the times of suffering to discover that he is sufficient, that
Right.
He really is all we need
Right.
in this life.
And the other thing is, I would say that I've heard that somewhere, so it's not my idea, but I found this really true, that the 3 T's, we need to talk, so we need people that we can process our pain with, we need tears, and we need time. Because wounds don't heal quick. When I broke my leg, it took eight weeks to heal it. And we can't expect that if there's a wound in our soul, well, I'm going to just shake myself and tomorrow I'm going to be able to function the same way. Grace plus time,
Yes.
that's what's needed for healing.
Yes.
And community.
Mm.
We're wounded in community and we are healed in community.
There's those listening possibly who have tried to even bury the pain, the suffering of something that would tragically happen to them, maybe as a child. In your case, the abuse from your
Right.
father. And just thought, if I ignore it and don't deal with it, it'll go away.
It won't.
Ultimately, it eats the inside.
Yeah.
And it sometimes causes us to take on habits and hang-ups
Right.
that aren't healthy for us.
No.
And it's not what God designed for us.
Yeah, I saw that way too many times. But that people who, just oppress those things, they don't face that reality. Suddenly in their 40s and 50s, they go through a divorce, addiction, their mental breakdown or some kind of tragedy happens. So that's why we need to honestly embrace those pains. And the first step is that, am I able to verbalize that and tell to someone, tell to God?
Yes.
And even sometimes I was really upset with God. There were times in my life where I said I was struggling to forgive God, which is an incredible heresy even to mention that. But I brought that pain to God and said, God, help me.
And He's big enough to handle that.
Right.
Right.
It's just like David did in the Psalms and cried out that God, I don't like that what you do to me. Please, I don't understand you. But as you bring it to God, you bring it to the right place.
Your title is Executive Director with the ministry Cru in the church movements.
Right.
We don't have a lot of time, but I want you to kind of share a little bit
Yeah.
about what you're doing.
Right. I'm actually co-executive director with Dave Robinson.
Who you've actually co-written a book with, too.
Yes, The Outrageous Promise. Actually, we lead church movements. Church movements is one of the 4 mission critical components of Cru: campus, leader-led, digital, and church. And we partner with churches to make Jesus known, multiply the church, and serve the city. We come alongside of the churches to in two main areas. One is, how can we equip every single believer to start spiritual conversations where they work, live, and play? And also, how can we equip leaders to help multiply the church and multiply missional communities in the church? So there are a lot of aspects. I mean, more can be found on churchmovements.com. We have online trainings, and we have in-person trainings. We use great tools that we have contextualized from the whole world, that we brought it into the best evangelism expertise.
Great resource there. And also your website too.
Right.
Which is
Grace, my family name, GRESZ, for, like FOR, city, graceforcity.com.
Gabriel Grace, God bless you, my brother.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for what you're allowing Christ to do through you and Edna, through your ministry with Cru, and thank you for coming and helping us here in America. We need all the help we can get.
Well, it's a privilege to be here.
God bless you.
You too.
Friends, that's all the time we have on this edition of Mid-South Viewpoint. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Byron Tyler. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.